Chrono Core is a mechanized melee of machines. Take control of a pilot and their giant mech called a Chrono. It starts with a unique core, several different equipment pieces, and deadly weapons. Upgrade your equipment to gain more core charge each turn that can be used to bolster weapon attacks against your opponent, counter their moves with hidden configuration cards, or set up future plays with support cards. When all appears lost, your Chrono can overclock into its final form, gaining new abilities to make one last stand. You win the game when you reduce the opposing pilot's life total to 0. In Chrono Core, there are 6 types of cards: Pilot, Core, Equipment, Weapon, Configuration, and Support. Pilot cards are the basis of your whole strategy. They're your leader type card. In the upper right corner, they have a life value. If this hits 0... In the upper left corner, they have a chassis icon. It can be either light, medium, or heavy, and it's mostly there for deck building. Your other mech parts have to match this symbol. Pilots, and, well, every other type of card, also have an effect text box. This is where the cards do things. I probably don't need to explain that every time, but I do anyway. Above the effect box to the left is the card's type and subtype. Every card type got this green box. Core cards are just what they say, the core of your Chrono. The Chrono Core? In the upper right-hand corner of the core card, you will find the shield value. This is the number that will need to be depleted before your pilot's life starts eroding away. Once again, in the upper left corner, you will find the chassis icon. Your pilot and core need to have the same icon. At the bottom of the effect box, there is an overclock condition. This is unique to core cards. When the effect is fulfilled, the core flips over and gains additional abilities. Equipment cards are basically your Chrono's outer parts that you'll play throughout the game to upgrade your starting components. They come in 3 varieties: visor, gauntlets, and greaves. Equipment cards have a play cost in the upper left, and so do all of the remaining card types. This is how much core charge you'll have to pay in order to play this card from your hand. Mostly unique to equipment cards though is the core increase in the upper right corner, which is how much core charge the equipment will provide you with during the reset phase if it's in play. More on that later. Below the play cost is the card's mark level, which is just generally how good it is on a scale of 1 to 4. Bigger number, better equipment. Below that, we have the chassis icon yet again. Moving on, next are the weapon cards. These are what you're going to be using to deal damage to your opponent's shields and life. You can find the damage a weapon deals when it strikes in the upper right corner. Weapons also have a scrap bonus at the bottom of the text box when they're equipped and get replaced with another card. The type of weapon is also important. They can either be one-handed or two-handed. Your mech only got 2 arms, for now, so you'll have to take that into account. It's a good thing there's also an auxiliary weapon type. I mean, is it even a mech game if there aren't crazy shoulder-mounted weapons? Configuration cards are like the spell and trap cards of the game, but they're played under a specific piece of equipment or weapon, and they often stay in play. Finally, we have support cards. These are played to the support area and usually stay on the board to be activated whenever you desire. Some support cards even give you extra core charge like an equipment card. Now that we've looked at all the card types, let's look at how to set up a game. To play a game of Chrono Core, you'll need a pilot first. After that, you'll need a core that matches the chassis icon on your pilot. Then you'll need 3 Mark I equipment cards, 1 for each type: visor, gauntlet, and greaves. They also need to match the pilot's chassis icon. This is your starting Chrono, but you're gonna need some weapons. You can decide between either 2 one-handed Mark I weapons or 1 two-handed Mark I weapon. So many numbers. You don't get an auxiliary weapon though. You gotta draw that thing. And speaking of drawing, you'll need a 50-card deck that contains equipment, weapon, configuration, and support cards. You may have 3 copies of any given card in your deck, except there are legendary Mark IV cards that are very powerful. You may only have 1 Mark IV equipment and 1 Mark IV weapon in your whole deck. You may also not have any Mark I cards in your deck, and all equipment cards have to match your pilot's chassis. Once you have your deck and extras assembled, shuffle your deck, and then place your pilot, core, Mark 1 equipment, and Mark 1 weapons on the board. After that, decide who goes first by an agreed upon method. You could roll a die, you could flip a coin, you could see who gets further in the original armored core before you die because the dual sticks didn't even exist and you gotta use the shoulder buttons to... Once that's been decided, both players draw 5 cards from their deck. Starting with the player going first, they can return any cards they don't want to the bottom of their deck, draw the same number of cards, and then reshuffle their deck. Now, players will go through the following phases until someone's pilot has 0 life remaining. Reset phase. Set your core charge to the current amount that all of your equipment and support cards are giving you. Our Mark 1 Tiamat equipment is giving us a total of 3, and we have no support cards, so our max core charge is 3. The higher level equipment in our deck will provide us with more core charge. There's also this handy second tracker on the playmat so you can track the max core charge. Following that, set all of your depleted cards to active. Depleted is the old 90-degree angle turn to show that a card has been used. Right up Way's word is active and ready to be used. Draw phase. Draw a card from your deck. If you're going first and it's the first turn of the game, you don't get to draw. After that, you may send a card from your hand to the void, never to be seen again, face down. If you do, you may draw a card from your deck. You can void and draw on the first turn of the game, even if you're going first. Main phase. This is one of those do anything you want in any order kind of games, so let's go through the list of things you can do during the main phase. Let's go over the most important one first, playing cards. To play a card in your hand, you must decrease your core charge by the play cost on the card you're trying to play. Once you've done that, what happens next depends on the card type you're playing. Equipment cards are played on top of any other cards in the appropriate equipment slot. You also do not need to upgrade the mark level one by one. If you have a Mark 1 gauntlet in play and you have enough core charge to play a Mark 3 gauntlet you have in your hand, you can do that. Just slap that 3 on top of the 1. You can also level down if you want to for some reason. Weapon cards work similarly, but a little different. The first time you upgrade your Mark 1 weapon, just put the upgraded weapon on top of the Mark 1 weapon. The next time you upgrade that weapon though, you scrap the previous upgrade, sending it to the scrap pile, Chrono Core's discard pile, triggering the on-scrap ability of that weapon, the one that got scrapped. Mark 1 weapons are never scrapped or removed from the board. Just like equipment, you can also skip mark levels and level down with weapons. When you play a configuration card, you have options. You can play it face up under one of the slots listed by the card type and immediately resolve any on-reveal triggers it might have. Or, you can pay 1 core charge to play it face down under a piece of equipment where it can be activated later. Even on your opponent's turn! A face-down configuration can be activated at any time during your main phase, when your opponent plays a card, and when your opponent declares an attack. When you flip a configuration face up, you may resolve any on-reveal triggers it might have. Some of those might have a core charge cost associated with it, so make sure you pay for that if you want to use that ability. Each slot can only have 1 configuration card though. If you play a new one, the old one is scrapped. Support cards are easy by comparison. Just pay the cost and play them to the support area of the board. If they only have an on-play ability, send them to the scrap pile after that ability resolves. Aside from playing cards, you can also activate any active main abilities you might have on cards in play. To do this, pay any core charge associated with the ability and then deplete the activating card. If this card is an equipment, weapon, or configuration, you must deplete all cards in that slot. Then you do what it says, baby, reading words on cards. Lastly, during your main phase, you can attack your opponent. Declare the attack by choosing one of your active weapons to attack with, unless it's either player's first turn of the game. In that case,
you can't attack on your first turn.
Attacking does not cost any core charge. Then you may activate any on-attack abilities on any of your active cards, making sure to pay for any costs associated with those abilities, and deplete the cards that resolve them. Once you've on-attacked your heart out, your opponent has the chance to activate a single counter-attack ability from one of their own cards. Again, they gotta be able to pay for it if there's a core cost. After the counterattack resolves, deplete the attacking weapon, add up all of your bonuses, and deal damage. If your opponent has any shields remaining on their core, it must be damaged first. If your opponent has no shields, the damage is dealt to the opponent's life total. If your opponent has less shield than the attack's power, the remaining damage does not carry over from shields to life. One of the most common ways to overclock your core is to run out of shields. Remember that when your core's overclock condition is met, you can flip your core, giving you new abilities, and often a very powerful on-overclock effect, like this Tiamat's ability to grab a Mark IV weapon from your deck or void and equip it. Big shield! Once you've done all you can do in the main phase, you enter the end phase where you declare that your turn is over. Then, the next player starts at their reset phase. Turns go on until only one pilot is left standing. The other is reduced to 0 life and atoms. Reduced to atoms, never mind. And that's Chrono Core. Upgrade your mech to gain more core charge. Plan devastating configuration traps. Beat up your opponent's Chrono, but be prepared for the result when it overclocks into a more powerful state. Is your Chrono the corest around? Back Chrono Core on Kickstarter, March 18th. I'm Two Lanes the Card Game Crypt Man, and I'm out.